My accountant called about a $42,000 payment to my wife from a business I own but had never visited. She said she was consulting. The Instagram photo told a different story. Her in a red dress, playing queen in my kingdom. Then the bouncer stopped me at the door. Members only, sir. My name is Daniel Rothstein. I'm 53 years old, and for the past 25 years, I've specialized in mergers and acquisitions. I've dissected companies, found value where others saw a ruin, and walked away from deals that looked perfect on paper but stank of desperation underneath. I built my reputation on reading between the lines, on spotting the lie hidden in polished presentations. So it's ironic that I missed the one happening under my own roof. Margot, my wife of 27 years, had recently announced she wanted to go back to work. She said she felt invisible, that being a housewife made her feel like furniture. I told her she could do whatever made her happy, pursue hobbies, volunteer, even retire early if she wanted. We had the money. Hell, we had more than enough. That apparently was the wrong answer. Her tone changed after that conversation. Colder. Defensive. One evening, she snapped at me over dinner. Not everything is about your spreadsheets and your deals, Dan. Some of us want to matter in ways that don't show up on a balance sheet. I didn't argue. I just nodded and went back to my meal, figuring she'd work through whatever midlife crisis this was on her own terms. Then my accountant, Harold, called. Harold's been with me since I sold my first consulting firm back in 2008. Quiet guy, methodical, the kind of man who finds discrepancies in his sleep. He asked me, very carefully, if I'd approved a $42,000 executive bonus to Mrs. Rothstein. I said no. I asked him to send me the documentation. The invoice was clean. Too clean. Signed off by someone named Kyle Townsend, transferred to an account in Margot's name, categorized under hospitality consulting. The LLC attached to the payment was buried under 3 layers of holding companies. I recognized the structure. It was one of mine. A club I'd acquired 2 years ago as part of a distressed asset package during a larger acquisition. I'd never visited the place. Never even thought about it. The quarterly reports showed stable returns, so I'd left it alone. Now my wife was pulling executive bonuses from it. I didn't confront her. Not yet. Instead, I started digging. Margot had mentioned a club a few times over the past 6 months. She said it was a consulting gig, something about branding and atmosphere. She used phrases like experiential design and client journey optimization. Corporate nonsense that sounded impressive, but meant nothing. I'd smiled and nodded like a supportive husband. Last Tuesday, I was scrolling through a cloud backup, something I do periodically to clear space, and stumbled onto a folder Margot thought was private. Inside were photos. Not the kind that break a marriage in one glance, but the kind that whisper lies over months. Her, behind a bar in a crimson dress, pouring drinks. Her, laughing with a man whose hand rested too comfortably on her waist. Her, standing under red pendant lighting I recognized from the architectural mock-ups I'd approved during the acquisition. She wasn't consulting for the club. She was performing in it. And judging by her body language, she'd convinced herself, and everyone around her, that she owned the place. The caption on one photo read, Queen of the Night. No tags, just hearts. I closed the laptop and sat in the silence of my office for a long time. Then I called my attorney, Stephen. I told him I needed a full audit of the club's operations. Board structure, financials, vendor contracts, everything. He didn't ask why. He just said he'd have it by morning. That night, Margot came home late, smelling like expensive perfume and lies. She kissed me on the cheek and said she'd had a long strategy session. I smiled and said, "Sound productive." She went upstairs. I poured myself a scotch and opened the file Stephen had already started compiling. Betrayal isn't loud. It's filed under miscellaneous expenses, and I was about to audit every line. I showed up Thursday night, unannounced, dressed down on purpose, jeans, leather jacket, nothing that screamed money or ownership, just a guy looking for a drink. The club sat in a renovated warehouse district in Lower Manhattan, the kind of neighborhood where old money meets new pretension. Brick exterior, minimal signage, valet parking. Exclusive without being flashy. I'd approved the design 4 years ago without ever seeing it in person. A velvet rope stretched across the entrance. Behind it stood a bouncer who looked like he benched small cars for fun. Thick neck, crisp black suit, the dead-eyed stare of someone who's turned away 1,000 people and enjoyed every second of it. I approached casually. He sized me up, shoes, jacket, the subtle assessment of a man whose job is to judge worth at a glance. "Members only, sir," the bouncer said. His voice was flat, bored. I smiled. Of course. I turned to leave. That's when the door behind him opened. A man stepped out, fumbling with his phone, not paying attention until he looked up and saw me. His face went through 3 stages in 2 seconds. Recognition, confusion, then absolute horror. Kyle Townsend, the club manager. Early 40s, expensive suit, the kind of haircut that costs more than most people's car payments. I recognized him from the photos in the operational file Steven had sent over. Kyle's face drained of color like someone had opened a valve. Wait, he stammered, his voice cracking. Wait. Oh God. I raised an eyebrow. Didn't say a word. Kyle grabbed the bouncer's arm, his fingers digging into the fabric of the man's suit. That's the owner, Kyle said, his voice rising with panic. You just turned away the owner. The bouncer's expression shifted from bored to alarmed in an instant. He stepped aside, fumbling with a rope clip. Sir, I apologize. I didn't know. How could you? I said evenly, meeting his eyes. I've never been here before. Kyle was sweating now, despite the cool October air. Mr. Rothstein, I had no idea you were planning to visit. We would have prepared something, a proper welcome. I cut him off with a glance. I'm just here for a drink, Kyle. Nothing formal. He nodded too quickly, like a bobblehead on a dashboard. Of course. Please come in. Let me show you. I'll find my own way. I stepped past him, through the entrance, into the club. The interior hit me immediately. Deep red leather booths, jazz bleeding from hidden speakers, dim amber lighting that made everything look expensive and slightly dangerous. The air smelled like aged whiskey and ambition. It was designed to make people feel important, to make them believe they belonged to something exclusive. Kyle followed me like a nervous shadow. Can I get you a table? The VIP section is. I'm good, I said, scanning the room. My eyes adjusted to the low light. There were maybe 40 people scattered across the space. Suits, cocktail dresses, the murmur of conversations that probably involved deals and secrets. And then I saw her. Margot, behind the bar, wearing a dress I didn't recognize. Dark green, tight, cut to suggest rather than reveal. Her hair was styled differently than she wore at home. More dramatic. She was pouring something amber into a crystal glass for a man in his 50s, leaning forward just enough to make him feel special. She hadn't seen me yet. The lighting helped. I was standing in a shadowed section near the entrance while she was center stage, backlit by the bottles behind her. The man at the bar said something that made her laugh. A performative laugh, throaty and practiced. She touched his hand briefly as she slid the drink across him. Kyle appeared at my elbow again. Can I explain? No need, I said quietly, my eyes still on Margot. I can see everything just fine. He went silent. Smart man. I found a corner booth, half hidden by a structural column, and sat down. From here, I had a clear view of the bar without being obvious. I pulled out my phone, opened the camera, and started documenting. No flash. Clean frames. Evidence, not emotion. Kyle hovered nearby, uncertain whether to stay or flee. I ignored him. Margot moved through the space like she owned it. Staff deferred to her. Patrons smiled when she approached. She wasn't dressed like an employee. She was dressed like the draw, the reason people came here. And, judging by the way everyone acted around her, they believed it too. I took another photo, sent it to Steven with a simple caption. In position. His reply came back instantly. Document everything. I plan to. I watched Margot work the room for the next hour. She moved like someone who'd been doing this for years, not months. Confident. Practiced. Every gesture calculated for maximum effect. A waiter approached my booth. Young kid, maybe 25, nervous energy. Can I get you anything, sir? Scotch. Neat. Whatever's top shelf. He nodded and disappeared. Margot was still behind the bar, laughing at something a client said. The man was mid-60s, expensive watch, wedding ring catching the light. His hand rested on the bar top, inches from hers. She leaned forward, elbows on the polished wood, giving him her full attention. The universal signal of you're fascinating. I'd seen her use that exact posture on potential business partners at fundraisers. She perfected the art of making people feel special. The waiter returned with my scotch. 20-year Macallan. I took a sip and kept watching. Kyle appeared again, hovering at the edge of my peripheral vision like a mosquito you can't quite swat. Mr. Rothstein, I wanted to explain about Mrs. Rothstein. She's been instrumental in building our client relationships. Very hands-on with the atmosphere and... How often is she here? I asked, cutting him off. Kyle hesitated. Most evenings. Thursday through Saturday. Usually. Sometimes Wednesdays. Does she have an official title? Another hesitation. Longer this time. Not officially, no. She works as a consultant. Independent contractor. Helps with branding, client experience, that sort of thing. And the $42,000 payment. His face went pale again. That was a performance bonus. For exceptional work developing our VIP program. Approved by whom? By me, sir. It fell within my discretionary spending authority. I took another sip of scotch. Let the silence stretch. Kyle was sweating through his expensive shirt. Tell me something, Kyle. I said, my voice low and even. Did my wife tell you we're having marital problems? He blinked. She mentioned you were going through a rough patch. That you've been distant. Did she tell you I was seeing someone else? His jaw tightened. He didn't answer, which was answer enough. I see, I said. And you believed her. Mr. Rothstein, I don't want to get involved in. You're already involved, I said, setting my glass down. You've been signing off on payments to my wife without board approval. You've given her access to systems she has no authorization to use. You've allowed her to present herself as something she's not. Kyle opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. I can explain. Don't. I pulled out my phone and took another photo. Margot was now on the other side of the bar, touching another client's shoulder, laughing at another joke that probably wasn't funny. Just keep doing whatever you're doing. Pretend I'm not here. He nodded and retreated like a beaten dog. I opened my messages and texted Steven. Manager confirms wife here, 3 to 4 nights per week. Admitted to approving unauthorized bonus payment. Claims she told him we're separated. Steven's response came immediately. That's fraud. Document every conversation. I looked up. Margot had moved to a small platform near the DJ booth. The music shifted, something with a heavier beat, more sensual. She swayed to the rhythm, not dancing exactly, but moving in a way that drew every eye in the room. This wasn't consulting. This was a performance. And she was the star. The man in the gray blazer from earlier approached her, said something that made her throw her head back and laugh. His hand found the small of her back. She didn't move it away. I took 3 more photos. Clean frames. Clear angles. Then I stood, left $100 bill on the table, and walked out. Kyle tried to follow me. Mr. Rothstein, please, if we could just. I turned at the door. Send me every expense report from the last year. Every vendor contract. Every payment authorization. Every email where my wife's name appears. Have it on my desk by Monday morning. His face went white. Sir, that's not a request, I said. Then I walked out into the October night. Behind me, through the glass, I could still see Margot laughing, dancing, playing her role. She had no idea the audience had changed. I didn't go home. Instead, I drove to my office in Midtown. The building was mostly empty at 9 p.m., just security and a few workaholics burning midnight oil. I rode the elevator to the 18th floor, unlocked my corner office, and spread the files across my desk. Steven had sent over everything. Board minutes, financial statements, LLC structures, vendor contracts. I'd spent 25 years dissecting companies, finding the weak points, the lies hidden in footnotes. This was no different, except it was my wife on the other end of the audit trail. The club had been acquired as part of a distressed asset package in 2021. 3 businesses bundled together, sold at a discount because the previous owner needed cash fast. I kept 2, planned to flip the 3rd, the club, once the market recovered. But the returns were steady, so I'd left it alone. Big mistake. I traced the payments. The $42,000 to Margot wasn't the only one. There were dozens more. Smaller amounts, coded under different categories. Entertainment expenses, consultant fees, client development. $5,000 here, $8,000 there. Death by 1,000 cuts, spread across 18 months. Total damage, just over $270,000. I sat back in my chair and stared at the numbers. $250,000, siphoned off in increments too small to trigger automatic alerts. Smart. If Kyle had done this alone, I'd have called it embezzlement and pressed charges. But he hadn't done it alone. I opened Margot's cloud account again. Our family plan, shared access, the kind of thing you set up when you trust each other. I scrolled through a recent activity. Calendar appointments labeled club strategy, vendor meeting, VIP event planning. Then I found something that made my blood run cold. A folder labeled expansion plans. Inside were mock-ups for a second location. Philadelphia. She'd already scouted properties, drafted a business plan, even created a budget projection. The header read, Rothstein Social Ventures, Phase 2. My name, her vision, my money. There was an email thread with Kyle and someone named Angela Simmons, a commercial real estate agent. They'd toured 3 properties in Philly. Margot had signed off on one, pending financing, pending my money. I downloaded everything. Every file, every photo, every document. Then I deleted the folder from her cloud and emptied the trash. Let her wonder where it went. My phone buzzed. "Steven, you still at the office?" "Yeah," I said. "I've been going through the employment records. Your wife isn't on payroll. No W-2. No benefits. No official job title. But she's got building access, email credentials, and signing authority on certain accounts. Kyle set it up through a backdoor admin channel. Can we revoke it? Already drafted the paperwork. Just need your signature. Her access will be terminated by Monday morning. Cards frozen. Passwords reset. Building privileges revoked." "Do it," I said. "What about Kyle? Leave him for now. I want him nervous. Nervous people make mistakes." Steven was quiet for a moment. "You're sure about this? Once we start, there's no walking it back." I looked at the numbers on my screen. $270,000. 18 months of lies. "I'm sure," I said. "Start the process." I hung up and sat in the silence of my office. Through the window, the city glittered below. Thousands of lights, thousands of lives, thousands of people making choices that would shape their futures. Margot had made her choice. She'd walked into my world and acted like she built it. Now she was about to learn the difference between playing house and owning the deed. Monday morning arrived with cold precision. I was in my office by 6 a.m., watching the sun rise over Manhattan through floor-to-ceiling windows. Steven had sent confirmation at 5:45. Access termination executed. All systems locked. Margot left the house at 8:30, dressed in what she probably thought was business casual. Tailored pants, silk blouse, the confident stride of someone who believed she had somewhere important to be. I knew exactly where she was going. I gave her 30 minutes, then texted Steven. Status. His reply was immediate. She just tried to badge in. Denied. Security notified her the credentials were revoked per ownership directive. She's asking to speak with Kyle. And Kyle. In a meeting with our legal team. Unavailable. Perfect. I opened my laptop and pulled up the security feed Steven had granted me access to. The camera covered the club's main entrance. I watched Margot stand at the door, confusion evident even in the grainy footage. She tried her badge again. Red light. Again. Red light. She pulled out her phone. Probably calling Kyle. The call would go to voicemail. We'd had his assistant block her number an hour ago. She tried the door handle. Locked. Pounded on it twice. No answer. The club didn't open until 4 p.m., and the morning staff had been instructed not to respond to anyone without proper credentials. I watched her stand there for a full minute. Phone pressed to her ear, leaving what was probably an increasingly frantic message. Then she turned and walked away, her confident stride replaced by something closer to a march. She'd be home in 20 minutes. I closed the laptop. By the time I heard her car in the driveway, I was sitting at the kitchen table with coffee and the Wall Street Journal, the picture of domestic normalcy. She came through the door like a storm front. Keys hit the counter with a sharp crack. Heels echoed on hardwood. "The club locked me out," she said without preamble. "My badge doesn't work." Kyle isn't answering. The security guard said something about an ownership directive. She stared at me, waiting for surprise or concern. I took a sip of coffee. "That's strange. Strange." Her voice climbed. "Dan, it's more than strange. It's a system failure. I have meetings today, vendors coming in, a VIP event Wednesday that needs. Do you have a contract with the club?" I asked, my voice calm. She blinked. "What?" "An employment contract. W-2. Official documentation of your role there." I set down my coffee cup. Steven looked into it. "Apparently, there's no record of you being employed by any entity I own." The color drained from her face. "That's because I'm a consultant. Independent contractor. Kyle handles all that. Kyle doesn't have the authority to engage contractors without board approval, especially not contractors who've received over $270,000 in the past 18 months. She froze. Actually froze, like someone had pressed pause on her nervous system. "You've been tracking my payments?" "Your payments?" I stood slowly, deliberately. "Margot, that's my money. For my business. Paid to you without authorization, without contracts, without any legal framework whatsoever. I earned that money." Her voice was defensive now, sharp. "I built that VIP program. I brought in clients. I created the atmosphere that you created an illusion," I said quietly. "You walked into a business I own and acted like you built it. You told staff we were separated. You positioned yourself as something you're not. And you've been stealing from me to fund your fantasy. Stealing. She stepped back like I'd slapped her. I never stole anything. Kyle approved every payment. He said, Kyle doesn't own the club. I interrupted. I do. I've owned it since 2021. Every dollar you took came from an entity I control through multiple holding companies. You just didn't bother to ask whose name was on the paperwork. She opened her mouth, closed it. Her hands were shaking. As of 8 a.m. this morning, I continued, your access to all properties, systems, and accounts has been revoked. Your credentials are terminated. If you attempt to enter the premises again, you'll be treated as an unauthorized visitor and removed by security. You can't do this, she whispered. I already did. I walked past her toward the door. I have meetings downtown. We'll talk more tonight. Or not. Your choice. I left her standing in the kitchen, surrounded by the life she thought she'd built, realizing for the first time that none of it had ever been hers. I didn't come home until after 9 that evening. Deliberately. Let her sit with it. Let the reality settle into her bones the way lies had settled into mine for 18 months. When I walked in, the house was dark except for the kitchen light. Margot sat at the table, still in the same clothes from this morning, a glass of wine in front of her. Not her first, judging by the bottle. I've been trying to reach Kyle all day, she said without looking up. He won't answer. His assistant says he's unavailable. Jordan at the club hung up on me. I set my briefcase down. Jordan doesn't work for you. Neither does Kyle. They work for me. She finally looked up. Her eyes were red. Why are you doing this? Why am I doing this? I pulled out my phone and opened the photo gallery. Scrolled to the images from Friday night. Turned the screen toward her. That's you behind the bar, touching a client's arm. That's you dancing on the platform. That's you laughing with a man whose hand is on your back. She glanced at the photos, then away. I was working, building relationships. That's what hospitality means, Dan. You of all people should understand client development. Client development. I repeated slowly. Is that what we're calling it? I swiped to another photo. Here's you telling a bartender you own the place. Want to see the security footage where you introduce yourself as the founder? Her face went white. I sat down across from her. Here's what I understand. You wanted to feel important. You wanted to matter. So you walked into my business, created a role for yourself, and spent 18 months playing dress up with my money. It wasn't like that. No. I pulled out a folder Stephen had prepared. Opened it. This is your expansion plan for Philadelphia. Your business plan. Your budget projection. All of it built on my infrastructure, my reputation, my capital. Tell me, Margot, when were you planning to ask permission? She stared at the documents like they were written in a language she didn't understand. I found something else interesting. I continued. You told Kyle we were separated. Told him I was distant, possibly having an affair. That's why he felt comfortable approving your payments. He thought he was helping you become independent from a failing marriage. Dan. I also found the loan application. I slid another paper across the table. $180,000. Forged signature. My signature. For an apartment in Tribeca. Her breath caught. That's fraud, Margot. Not a misunderstanding. Not a gray area. Fraud. I could have you arrested. I was going to tell you, she whispered. I was building something real. Something that was mine. I just needed time to what? Steal enough to fund your exit? Leave me after you'd bled the business dry. She shook her head, tears streaming now. I never wanted to hurt you. I just wanted to be someone. Not just your wife. Not just someone's mother. Me. Independent. Successful. I stood up. You could have been all of that. I offered to fund anything you wanted. A real business. Education. Anything. But you chose this instead. You chose to lie, to steal, to manipulate people who trusted you. What happens now? Her voice was barely audible. Now. I walk to the counter, pour myself a drink. Now your attorney talks to my attorney. Now you explain to our kids why their mother was committing fraud. Now you figure out what your life looks like when you're not playing pretend in someone else's kingdom. Our kids. She stood up suddenly. You're going to tell Andrew and Rachel? They're adults, I said. They deserve the truth. Rachel especially, since she's been watching you do this for months. Margot's face went ashen. Rachel knows. Rachel works in the club's accounting department. Has for 3 months. She's the one who brought the discrepancies to Stephen's attention. The glass slipped from Margot's hand, shattering on the floor. Neither of us moved to clean it up. My own daughter, she whispered. Your own daughter watched you betray her father and documented every transaction. She gave me copies of everything. Every forged authorization. Every fraudulent expense report. Every lie you told Kyle about our marriage. I finished my drink and set the glass down. I'm staying at the university club tonight. Tomorrow, Stephen will bring divorce papers. You should hire an attorney. A good one. I walked toward the door. Dan, please. We can fix this. We can. I stopped but didn't turn around. 27 years. Margot. I would have given you anything. All you had to do was ask. Instead, you took. And now you have nothing. I left her standing in the kitchen, surrounded by broken glass and broken illusions. Outside, the October air was cold and clean. I breathed it in deeply, feeling lighter than I had in months. The lies were over. The truth was ugly, but at least it was real. Wednesday afternoon, I was in my office when my daughter Rachel walked in without knocking. She'd inherited her mother's dark hair, but had my eyes. Sharp, analytical, the kind that missed nothing. Andrew's flight lands in 2 hours, Rachel said, sitting down across from my desk. I'm picking him up. Thought you should know. I nodded. How much did you tell him? Everything. She crossed her arms. He deserved to know why he was getting emergency leave. He didn't take it well. I can imagine. Andrew was 26, career military, stationed at Camp Lejeune. He'd always been protective of me, of Rachel, of the family structure. This would hit him hard. Rachel leaned forward. Dad, I need you to understand something. I didn't do this to hurt Mom. I did it because what she was doing was wrong. The numbers didn't add up. The payments had no authorization. When I confronted Kyle about it, he told me she'd said you two were separated. I know. I gave you the evidence because you deserve the truth. But I still love her. She's still my mother. Rachel's voice wavered slightly. I just wish she'd been honest. I stood up and walked around the desk, pulled Rachel into a brief hug. You did the right thing. It took courage to come to me with this. She pulled back, wiping her eyes quickly. Andrew's going to want to confront her. He's already talking about it. You need to be prepared for that. Let him do what he needs to do, I said. He's a grown man. He can make his own choices. My phone buzzed. Stephen's name appeared on the screen. I answered. We've got a problem, Stephen said without preamble. Margot just showed up at the club with a lawyer. Some hotshot from a white shoe firm in Midtown. They're demanding access to the premises, claiming she has contractual rights as a consultant. Does she? No. But they're threatening legal action. Hostile work environment, wrongful termination, gender discrimination. The usual playbook. I sat back down at my desk. Let them file. We have documentation of every unauthorized payment, every forged signature, every lie she told staff. If they want to make this public, we'll bury them in discovery. Understood. One more thing. Kyle wants immunity in exchange for testimony. He's willing to go on record about everything Margot told him. The separation story, the affair allegations, all of it. Give him limited immunity. Nothing on the financial mismanagement. He's still responsible for that. But immunity on anything related to fraud or forgery. Done. Stephen paused. How are you holding up? I'm fine, I said. It wasn't entirely true, but it was functional. The kids. Rachel's handling it. Andrew arrives in 2 hours. We'll see how he processes it. After I hung up, Rachel was still sitting there, watching me with those analytical eyes. You're not fine, she said quietly. Dad, I see it. You're functioning, but you're not fine. I will be, I said, once this is over. And Mom. I looked at my daughter. 23 years old, brilliant, working her way through a finance degree while holding down a full-time job. She'd caught her mother's fraud and reported it despite the personal cost. Your mother made her choices, I said. Now she lives with them. Rachel nodded slowly. Andrew's going to be angry. I know. He might say things, do things. I know. But you're still his father. He needs to hear from you that it's okay to be angry. That he's not betraying her by being on your side. Smart kid. I'll talk to him when he gets here. Rachel stood up. I'm going to head to the airport. We'll come straight here if that's okay. That's fine. She walked to the door, then stopped. Dad, for what it's worth, I'm proud of how you're handling this. You could have lost it. Screamed, broken things, made it ugly. But you didn't. You stayed controlled. That's strength. After she left, I sat alone in my office, looking out at the Manhattan skyline. The city that never sleeps, full of people making choices they'd have to live with. Margot had made hers. And now so had I. Andrew walked into my office at 6:15 that evening looking exactly like what he was. A Marine who'd been told his family was falling apart. Buzzed hair, dress uniform still on from the flight, jaw set in that way that meant he was barely holding back fury. Rachel followed behind him, quieter, more cautious. Dad, Andrew said. His voice was tight, controlled. Military discipline, overriding emotion. Barely. I stood up. Andrew. Welcome home. He didn't move to hug me. Just stood there, ramrod straight. Rachel showed me the files on the drive from the airport. The payments. The forgery. The expansion plans. He paused. Is it all true? Yes. All of it. The Philly property? The fake loan documents? The affair with the manager? I don't know if it was physical, I said carefully. But emotional affair? Yes. Absolutely. Andrew's hands clenched into fists at his sides. Where is she? At the house. She's been staying there. I've been at the university club. I need to see her. Andrew. I need to see her, Dad. His voice rose slightly. She's my mother. I need to hear her say it. I need to hear her try to explain why she did this to you. To us. I looked at Rachel. She gave a small nod. This had been coming since the moment Andrew learned the truth. Okay, I said. But Rachel goes with you. And you stay calm. No yelling. No physical confrontation. You hear me? I'm not going to hit my own mother, Andrew said. But his voice suggested he'd thought about it. I know. But you're angry. Rightfully so. I just need you to remember she's still your mother, regardless of what she's done. Andrew's jaw worked. How are you so calm about this? She stole from you. She lied to everyone. She tried to take your business and make it hers. How are you just sitting here like it's a normal Wednesday? I walked over to him, put my hand on his shoulder. Because losing control doesn't help. Being angry doesn't change what happened. The only thing that matters now is moving forward with clear eyes and clean hands. Clean hands, Andrew repeated bitterly, while hers are covered in. Andrew. My voice was firm. I know you're angry. I was too. Still am, some days. But she's going to face consequences. Legal consequences. Financial consequences. Social consequences. You going over there and screaming at her doesn't add anything to that. It just makes you feel worse afterward. He was quiet for a long moment. Then, I still need to see her. I know. I released his shoulder. Rachel, go with him. Keep it short. Don't let it escalate. Rachel nodded. Come on, Andrew. Let's get this over with. They left. I stood at the window and watched the city lights blink on across Manhattan as evening deepened. My phone buzzed. Stephen. Margot's attorney just sent over their demands. Full reinstatement, back pay, public apology, and damages for emotional distress. They're asking for $2 million. I laughed. Actually laughed. Counter with criminal charges for fraud and embezzlement. See how fast they back down. Already drafted the response. Should I send it? Give me an hour. Let Andrew talk to her first. Then send it. Understood. I hung up and poured myself a scotch. Sat down and waited for the call I knew was coming. It came 45 minutes later. Rachel. Dad. You need to get to the house. Now. My blood went cold. What happened? Andrew. He didn't hit her. But he said things. She's having a breakdown. I mean a real one. She's hyperventilating. Can't breathe properly. I think she needs medical attention. Call 911. Already did. Ambulance is on the way. But you should be here. I'm coming. I grabbed my jacket and ran. 27 years of marriage. It had survived business failures, family deaths, stress, distance, everything life threw at us. But it couldn't survive what she'd done to herself. And now our son had held up a mirror, and she'd finally seen what she'd become. I arrived at the house to find an ambulance in the driveway. Lights flashing red and blue against the autumn darkness. Neighbors stood on their porches, watching. 27 years in this neighborhood. And this was how it ended, with emergency responders and whispered judgments. Rachel met me at the door. She's stable. They're checking her vitals now. Andrew's in the living room. I found my son sitting on the couch, head in his hands, still in uniform. He looked up when I entered. His eyes were red. I didn't mean for this to happen, Andrew said, his voice hollow. I just wanted her to admit it, to take responsibility. But she kept making excuses, kept blaming you, blaming circumstances, blaming everyone but herself. And I told her the truth. All of it. What did you say? I told her she was a thief, that she destroyed our family for money and attention, that you'd given her everything, and she threw it away to play pretend in a club you owned. He looked down at his hands. I told her I was ashamed to be her son. The words hung in the air like smoke. Andrew. I know I shouldn't have said that. But Dad, she tried to make herself the victim. She said you drove her to it, that you were emotionally distant, that she felt invisible. And I couldn't let her rewrite history like that. The paramedics brought Margot out on a stretcher. Her eyes were open but unfocused, staring at nothing. They'd given her something for the panic attack, sedative, probably. She looked small, diminished, nothing like the woman who'd held court in that club less than a week ago. One of the paramedics approached me. Are you Mr. Rothstein? I'm here with your husband. Yes. She's experiencing acute anxiety and possible dissociative symptoms. We're taking her to Mount Sinai for evaluation. Psychiatric hold, likely 48 hours. You should follow us. I nodded. Turned to Rachel and Andrew. You two go home. Get some rest. I'll handle this. Dad, I should come with you, Rachel said. No, you've done enough. Both of you. This is between me and your mother now. Andrew stood up. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. You told her the truth, I said. Sometimes the truth is what breaks people. That's not your fault. At the hospital, I sat in a waiting room with fluorescent lights and outdated magazines. A doctor eventually came out, young woman, tired eyes, name tag reading Dr. Patel. Mr. Rothstein, your wife is stable. She's sedated right now, but she'll be under observation for at least 48 hours. She experienced a severe panic attack, followed by what we call dissociative shock. Essentially, her mind couldn't process the emotional trauma, so it shut down temporarily. Will she be okay? Physically, yes. Mentally, that's going to take time. She'll need therapy, possibly medication. This kind of breakdown often happens when someone's confronted with a reality they can't accept. Has something significant happened recently? I almost laughed. You could say that. Dr. Patel handed me some paperwork. We'll keep her for observation. You're welcome to visit during designated hours, but I'd recommend giving her space tonight. She needs to rest. I signed the forms and left. Drove back to the University Club in silence. The city lights blurred past, each one representing a life I wasn't living, problems I didn't have. My phone buzzed. Stephen. Margot's attorney withdrew their demands. Completely. No counteroffer, no negotiation. They're out. What changed? I may have mentioned the psychiatric hold, and the fact that proceeding with litigation would require her to testify under oath about the forgery. They folded. Good. How is she? Broken, I said. Completely broken. And you? I pulled into the parking garage, killed the engine. Sat in the dark. I don't know yet, I said. Ask me in a month. But even as I said it, I felt something shift. Not relief exactly. Not peace. But the absence of chaos. The silence after a storm. Margot had built her kingdom on lies. And when the foundation crumbled, she'd fallen with it. I'd warned her. I'd given her every chance to be honest, to build something real. She'd chosen illusion instead, and now she was living in the wreckage. For months later, I walked into the club on a Tuesday evening. It looked different now. New management, new staff, a different energy. Catherine Morgan, the attorney who'd helped Stephen with the case, had taken over as operations director. She'd transformed it into something legitimate. Less theater, more substance. Kate met me at the entrance, professional smile in place. Daniel, welcome. The renovations turned out well, don't you think? Better than well, I said. The crimson leather was gone, replaced by navy blue booths. The dramatic lighting had been toned down, made elegant rather than performative. You've made it feel like an actual business instead of a stage. That was the goal. Kate walked with me through the space. We're up 18% in revenue since the restructure. Turns out people actually prefer authenticity over manufactured exclusivity. I'd hired Kate after the divorce was finalized. She was 44, brilliant, had a dry sense of humor that appealed to me. Somewhere between the legal strategy and the business restructure, we'd started having dinners that weren't about work. Then drinks. Then more. We weren't serious yet, but we were honest. And after everything with Margot, honesty felt like oxygen. How are the kids? Kate asked as we took a table near the window. Rachel's thriving. Got promoted at her new firm. Andrew finished his deployment and got accepted to Columbia Business School. They're both doing better than I expected. And Margot. I took a sip of the scotch Kate had ordered for me. She learned my preferences. She's in a treatment facility in Connecticut. Court-mandated therapy, repayment plan for the embezzled funds. She'll be there another 6 months. Do you talk to her? Through lawyers only. The divorce was finalized last month. She kept the house. I kept the businesses. Clean split, relatively speaking. Kate nodded, didn't push. That was another thing I appreciated about her. She didn't need to dissect my past to understand my present. A waiter approached. Different kid than before, better trained. Mr. Rothstein, Ms. Morgan. The chef prepared something special tonight. May I bring it out? Please, Kate said. After he left, I looked around the club. The framed photo of the founding contributors was gone, replaced by abstract art. The bar had been refinished. Even the music was different. Less jazz, more contemporary. Every trace of Margot had been systematically removed. It should have felt like victory. Instead, it just felt necessary. You did the right thing, Kate said quietly, reading my expression. Walking away from something toxic isn't weakness. It's survival. I know. Do you? She reached across the table, touched my hand briefly. Because sometimes you look at this place like you're waiting for something to happen. Like you're waiting for her to walk back in and prove she's changed. She won't, I said. And even if she did, it wouldn't matter. That part of my life is over. Good. Kate smiled. Because I'm not interested in competing with a ghost. Dinner arrived. Something elegant and perfectly prepared. We ate and talked about normal things. Business expansion, weekend plans, a book Kate had read that she thought I'd like. No drama. No performance. Just two people enjoying each other's company without scripts or lies. Later, standing outside the club in the November cold, Kate turned to me. You know what I think? What? I think you spent 27 years building something with someone who didn't appreciate it. And now you get to build something new with someone who sees your value. That's not an ending, Daniel. It's an opportunity. She kissed me on the cheek and walked to her car. I stood there for a moment, watching the city move around me, thinking about Margot in that treatment facility, facing the consequences of choices she couldn't undo, thinking about Rachel and Andrew, rebuilding their relationship with their mother one supervised visit at a time, thinking about the business I'd reclaimed, the life I'd reconstructed. The club behind me hummed with conversation and laughter. Real this time. Earned. I'd lost a wife. But I'd kept my integrity, my business, my children's respect. And in the end, that was the only kingdom that mattered. The one built on truth, held together by genuine respect, defended by people who valued what you'd created. Margot had tried to steal that. She'd failed.